Hello, today we're going to talk about the Adelaide Formula 1 Grand Prix circuit, but not the circuit that most of us would remember. We're talking about the previous options that were proposed back in the early 1980s. This video is entirely as a result of Den's comments on the Port Duck forward lap, which alerted me to the fact that these even existed. So thanks a lot, my friend. But before we talk about the tracks themselves, we need to put ourselves in the Adelaide mindset. We have some of the biggest parklands of any city in the world. The entire city is ringed by parklands, and then we have North Adelaide, which is itself ringed by parklands, so it's a nice figure eight there, and they're very important to a large number of people within the Greater Adelaide, so there's a lot of resistance to change. We have a Heritage Act that has been in place since the late 1970s. So by the time that this story starts, it's been in place for 4 or 5 years. A large number of the buildings that we go past on the initial proposed routes will be heritage listed. So there's a lot of inability to change the built environment around proposed tracks. So with that said, there were 2 options put forward. The first goes along the Torrens on both sides, uses King William Street, uses Montefiore Road, and the Morfett Street kind of overpass bridge, and uses Light Square and uses Curry Street. That's the first option. That got put up in 1982. This was as part of planning for the 150th anniversary of Adelaide being founded by colonial settlers. So that happens in 1982, gets put up, seems to quickly get rejected. 1983 they come up with a second option, which is largely around where the Grand Prix circuit ended up being, so Wakefield Street, Decateville Terrace, Rundle Street gets used, East Terrace gets used. In this version we also use Hindmarsh Square, so we're using some different streets. We're not going down into Vic Park. That option gets put up, apparently gets accepted as is without the changes to add the Vic Park section and keep us out of the CBD. By 1984 we've got a race. So here we are in Google Earth Pro. Option 2 is the red map. You can see here we have Rundle Street still in use, Decateville Terrace still in use, Wakefield Road, Wakefield Street still in use, but we go all the way along here to Pulteney Street, and we come up through Hindmarsh Square, come back along Grenfell Street, use East Terrace, and then back. How fast they would have gone if they had the length of Wakefield Road, Wakefield Street without any interruption would be mind-boggling. And it's also a very simple, somewhat boring layout. I think somewhere you have to fit in a pit sequence and the start-finish line. Likely you put the pit sequence somewhere using the parklands around Victoria Park, even if you didn't go all the way down here. So that, I think, has problems. I don't think it has so many heritage problems and parklands problems compared to option 1, because Vic Park was not seeing high-end use here. You had obviously through the east end here some heritage, got some heritage up over here. I think largely you're okay. It's also worth noting that we're using a Google Maps from 2001 here to give us as close as we can get to the 1980s look of the Adelaide CBD. We saw that becomes that, which I think is a vast improvement in terms of variety of corners, gives you a clear start-finish section, gives you a clear pit lane, and I think that works. Here's what the first option was. So here we are, we have King William Street for a decent length straight, Curry Street for a short straight, this little kind of almost a chicane but very tight sequence through Light Square. You use Morfett Street Road, the bridge is here. There's problems with the elevation of that bridge, I think, in terms of how steep it is. Then you come down Montefiore Road, turn onto War Memorial Drive, come through here, come the whole way along here, turn onto Frome Road past the zoo, then turn onto Victoria Drive past Adelaide Uni, back onto King William Street. So let's talk about some of the issues here. Pretty much all of Adelaide University here, that section is heritage listed. There are heritage listed items along here, if we talk about what they currently are. For the zoo, old zoo gates, I think it's like the children's entrance, there's the elephants garden part through there. That's pretty much heritage listed, not moving. we have Government House. Clearly that's not moving. The Festival Centre only really just kind of happened in the late 70s, so that was not heritage listed, but it's unlikely to move. You have Elder Park Rotunda, that's not going to move. Parliament House, that's not going to move. Through here you have King William Street. You come into Light Square. I believe Colonel Light's grave is in here. We're not going to see too much change here. So that's problematic. Come through here, there's a historic church here. We've seen that the Convention Centre, which is previously kind of just here, has expanded out to basically the bridge. There's a sidewalk there that enters straight onto the Convention Centre. So yes, back in the 1980s you could have tried to widen the bridge. Then you come down here, you have Memorial Garden Tennis Complex here, you have Pinky Flat here, there's a fountain here, you have the Adelaide Oval here, you have one of the war memorials here, you have the old parade grounds here. I don't think you're going to change any of those. I think any expansion sideways in this section is not happening. Any expansion sideways in this section is not happening. Same for Curry Street. Maybe if you did something along here. Now, this car park here has since essentially been claimed and turned into introductory areas to Memorial Drive and the Adelaide Oval. So the Adelaide Oval no longer looks a lot like this. It's also worth noting this stand here, the Bradman stand, was not there in the early 80s. That was like a 90s, late 80s, early 90s thing. So yes, you could have tried putting a pit straight through here. It's very tight, so you would have to claim some ground back from the road in here, and you're then going into a fairly tight corner here, and then a very tight section through here. You would have to widen the entire road of War Memorial Drive and probably Victoria Drive. This section here you might have been able to change. It is still parkland, it is not as well used. It's probably at this point still considered part of Botanic Park over here, so maybe that wouldn't have happened. So I think these are the key issues you have to face up against. You have a tight track that doesn't have a lot of room to expand. You don't have a lot of space to put in a pit section. You have, I assume, similar requirements back in the 80s. Today you require the pits to run alongside the start-finish line, and they must be at least 12 metres wide in the actual pit lane itself, plus you have to include pit buildings. Personally, if I was going to do this, I would probably look to try and build the pits through here. So if this is your line through Light Square, you extend through here and then up through here, and you have your start-finish line somewhere around Hindley Street. I think that's a very tight space. I don't know that you would actually have room for the pit buildings. So these are the problems I see with this track. But we can always try and prove it. So here we are in Assetto Corsa. This is a hastily thrown together Google Maps rendition, or adapted rendition. This is obviously not a 1980s set of buildings. So we're now on Curry Street. This is what I said. I think that the pits need to go through Light Square. I've done the short version. So we're in the actual racing part of the track at the moment. So coming through, we've gone past the TAFE. We've got kind of University SA as they currently are over there. As I said, I think the Morford Street Bridge is a bit too steep. You can see the arc of it there, very steeply up and steeply down, and then continues down much more sharply than this road. So I think that's a problem. You can see this is the width of the track. Kind of works. For this part, I'm not going to go fast this time through. Then we come on to War Memorial Drive. You can see it's narrowed a lot. We're down to 2 lanes of traffic. Yes, there's a little bit more space we could crib that are currently car parks. You can see Memorial Drive over there, Adelaide Oval over on the left. You can see some of this is, parked cars with the loving Google touch. Lovely trees that look like blocks. You can see down there that's the Torrens, and you can see you've dropped off steeply. This is going just past kind of, Pinky Flat-ish, and the footbridge now that is here. And obviously, like I said, all of this got reclaimed. There used to be a car park there that probably would have been ripe for claiming. come here, we've got King William Street there on the right. We've gone past it, sorry. And we turn here to continue, and it narrows further. So we really are now down to kind of 2 lanes. You can maybe get 140, 150 coming into here if you're on a hot lap. Because of the trees, as you can see, there's a lot of work that would have to go into reclaiming land here. Car parks here, that's fine. You could wind the track here, but then you have the rowing clubs buildings that would need to be moved. Unlikely to happen. Again, pretty sharp drop off if you're going to take space back on the Torrens side. More car parking over on the left, and from here you could actually go through. You've got that problem though of the rowing clubs. I can't see that happening. And I guess the other thing, I've smoothed it as much as I can to make it drivable, but there's a lot of slight elevation changes through here that may make it unpleasant, uncomfortable to drive a car at speed. We're now turning onto Frome Street. So this is a bridge over the Torrens. That's not getting wider, I wouldn't think. I believe there's some level of heritage stuff in that. Over here on the left is the old zoo gate area. You can see the fence is still there. Then we get to that section that I believe used to be part of Botanic Park. It's now off towards where the zoo entrance is. Car parks on both sides of the road, so yes, we could get a road going cars width of additional space. But again, trees, right? Pretty hard to claim all that space back. Now we're turning on to Victoria Drive, Adelaide Uni on the left. Those buildings are not moving. The road, yes, there's some car parking, and then it's hard up against the fence, which is kind of this nice wrought iron fences and stuff. I'm pretty sure that there's some level of heritage. You can see this is like coming up to Bar Smith Lawns and the Mews. It's very hard to see through there, but they're there. You can see the trees are quite heavily grown there. Again, in Adelaide, removing all of that, like to actually make this a usable track, the level of heritage and environmental change and destruction that would have to happen is not going to be accepted by the public, I would think. Definitely not in this day and age. I don't know what it was like in the early 80s, I can't comment. That's the parade grounds there. There's, War Memorial over here as well. And we turn back onto King William Street. Elder Park Rotunda is down there. Now there's festival stuff being set up there. From what I saw of the Google Maps that this is taken from, it seemed like it was Mad March was in place. There was stands up. Over here we've got Government House, stands up for the V8s, and a lot of things set up for the Adelaide Fringe. Festival Centre and Festival, Festival Square type thing there. Now we're building a hotel here now, which caused a lot of consternation in and of itself. So I don't think that was going to change anyway back in the early 80s, having just been built. Parliament House here. There's no way that's changing. Government House, you're not changing that. Coming up to we're crossing North Terrace now. You can see, obviously, things aren't well aligned because of this being a Google export. We've got all the CBD type buildings here. The other thing to keep in mind is if we did this change now, to make this track now, we have tram lines running all the way down through here and onto North Terrace. And considering they are recently put in, I can't see them being removed. So turning back onto Curry Street, to return us to where we are. Again, there's width here. Yes, you could fit a tight start-finish line and pits. You would have to crib space over here to put pit buildings. You would have to crib sidewalk on the other side probably to make it all work and fit. I don't think that's happening. I just don't think that there's physically enough space. If you're going to take the long route, you would turn left here. Instead, you could probably run a pit through here. You could fit, this is 12 metres wide the whole way, so we meet that. Can I fit pit buildings here? probably not enough of them to make useful sense. And after that, we exit. Hindley Street is here, and we complete our lap. That's a little bit of a potted history of the options we could have had for the Adelaide Grand Prix circuit. Thanks again to Denz for his comment. And if you're interested in seeing this mod develop further, drop a comment. If you have any interest in developing that mod yourself, let me know and I'm happy to hand over the assets. Hope you've enjoyed this. See you later.